There's a certain electricity in the air when a shift this big happens. An invisible current that everyone can feel but no one can quite name. The way you moved through their petty chaos, the way you kept your focus when every distraction was engineered to pull you apart, it's left people stunned. And not just in a casual, passing sort of way. They're speaking about you with that rare tone usually reserved for legends, as if they just watched something history-worthy unfold. But here's the twist. You didn't set out to impress them. You were simply living in alignment, holding your ground, and somewhere in the middle of that, you became the quiet storm they can't stop talking about. Yesterday, the universe sent 3 unexpected messengers to confirm what's already shifting in your life. The first voice came through the phone like it was carrying something heavy and delicate at the same time, words careful, almost pressed into the air. You have no idea how many eyes have been following your every move. The second, a revelation of the person who's been speaking your name in places your feet haven't even touched, someone who's been protecting your reputation in rooms you didn't even know existed. And the third, wasn't just information. It was a revelation that rewired the entire story, showing that the scheme meant to corner you was actually the seed of their undoing. Their plan was crafted like a play in 3 acts, yet every act collapsed under its own weight. The first move? They tried to paint your name in colors that would stain, twisting scraps of truth into shapes so unnatural they fell apart the moment they were seen in the light. Instead of believing it, people began quietly collecting proof, not against you, but against the ones spinning the story. You're not here by chance. Feel the pull? Tap Join to unlock truth, purpose, and a tribe that gets it. This is more than a membership. It's your calling. The second act aimed to make you untouchable, not in the empowering way, but in the lonely, cut-off way. They reached out to those closest to you, disguising malice as concern, hoping whispers would do what open confrontation could not. What they didn't expect was for these people to start connecting with each other, piecing together that they were all hearing the same script. And the final act. They wanted to drag you into the spotlight on their terms, to push you into a reaction that would serve as their evidence. But the spotlight is your natural element, and instead of shrinking under it, you stood there and made their entire performance irrelevant. There's a rare kind of strength that doesn't announce itself with noise or spectacle. It simply exists, unshakable, even when the air feels heavy with tension. While most would have been swept up in the storm, reacting, defending, scrambling for control, you stood in the center of it all with a presence so steady it unsettled those who came to break you. No counterattacks, no desperate explanations, just an unmovable truth radiating from every choice you made. That stillness didn't just protect you, it redefined how everyone saw you. And then came the 3 voices that would stitch the hidden parts of this story together. The first carried a confession from someone who had been approached to play a part in your undoing, but instead of joining the plot, they kept silent and began quietly collecting proof. Now they hold irrefutable evidence that turns the entire narrative on its head. The second revealed themselves as the quiet force who, without your knowledge, had been planting seeds of truth about you in every circle they touched, ensuring your name was always backed by unshakable credibility. The third brought the revelation that shifts everything. This wasn't about petty envy, it was about fear. Your very presence exposed the fragility of the facades they've been hiding behind, and they couldn't coexist with that kind of authenticity. If you've been touched by God's goodness, don't keep it to yourself. Click Super Thank You, and sow a gift of $20 or more to help spread His light. Your giving becomes a ripple of grace, blessing hearts and building His kingdom. Let His overflow pour through you. While they were building their trap, you were building something far more powerful without even knowing it. Each choice to stand firm instead of retaliating, each refusal to be baited into the chaos, each moment you answered tension with composure, these became invisible armor they couldn't pierce. They thought you'd fight on their terms, using weapons they understood. Instead, you rewrote the rules entirely, dismantling their entire strategy by never stepping into their arena at all. Some stories don't just unfold, they turn inside out, flipping the script so completely that everyone watching can't help but question how they ever thought they knew the ending. That's exactly what happened here. Those who tried to orchestrate your fall ended up building the stage for their own undoing. They were certain the spotlight would burn you, certain the crowd would cheer at your collapse. Instead, That same light revealed the cracks in their own foundation, and the crowd started taking mental notes. What was meant to be your public erasure became their public unraveling. The gathering they summoned to watch you shatter turned into a circle of eyes that saw right through them. Every falsehood they planted was met with a quiet shake of the head from someone who knew better. Every dramatic move they made became another page in the record against them. Their eagerness to expose you ended up documenting their own descent, and the witnesses they handpicked began to act less like spectators and more like judges, unmoved, observant, decisive. But beyond the visible chaos, another story was forming in the background. While their accusations echoed loudly, quiet conversations were happening in corners they didn't even know existed. People close to you weren't just standing by. They were piecing together a deeper truth. Threads from years past began to emerge, accounts of similar destruction aimed at others, stories whispered in fear now spoken aloud. What had been framed as a single clash began to look like a long chain of harm stretching back further than anyone realized. Blessed by His grace. Click Super Thank You and give $20 to spread His light. Your gift plants seeds that grow His kingdom. Be the blessing. This shift changed the frame entirely. The names behind the slander weren't just antagonists in your story. They were longtime architects of reputational ruin, moving in shadows until your situation dragged them into the open. And the crowd that thought they were watching a personal feud realized they were actually witnessing the unmasking of people who had quietly been dismantling lives for years. Some moments don't need loud declarations or dramatic gestures. They carry their power in quiet certainty. What you displayed wasn't just restraint. It was the kind of composure that flips an entire situation without raising a hand or voice. Standing in full view while others tangled themselves in their own schemes, you became the steady point in a spinning world. Those watching didn't just admire how you navigated the storm. They saw the rare ability to remain whole when surrounded by fractures, to keep your center when others tried to scatter it. You became a living reminder that real strength doesn't shout, it simply refuses to bend. When the realization hit that their plan had shattered beyond repair, they scrambled to rewrite the ending. They tried to soften their actions, dressing them in excuses and diluted truths. But the people who had seen the play from the front row couldn't be convinced otherwise. They had witnessed every calculated step, every move sharpened with intent. They knew they hadn't just seen a misunderstanding. They had watched an orchestrated attempt to dismantle someone piece by piece. Those once invited to be passive onlookers now became active keepers of the record. They carried with them the memory of every shift in tone, every subtle maneuver, every word designed to wound. The very audience meant to validate a false story instead became the keepers of the truth, holding it steady so no one could erase or distort it. Some transformations don't come from peace and comfort. They're forged in the moments when the air feels too heavy to breathe, when every move you make is being watched and weighed. In that space, something inside you shifted. What was meant to wear you down instead shaped you into someone steadier, sharper, and more certain than ever before. Every attempt to weaken you became raw material for building a stronger foundation, and without even realizing it, you stepped into a version of yourself that had been waiting beneath the surface all along. The impact of that change reached far beyond your own reflection. People weren't just noticing that you'd navigated the storm, they were drawn to the way you emerged from it. They could see the depth you'd gained, the way your presence now carried a kind of quiet authority that couldn't be faked. Those challenges had pulled forward traits you hadn't needed to call on before, reserves of clarity, patience, and discernment that made you impossible to shake. By the time the dust settled, the person standing there was equipped for anything. The trials that might have broken others had instead revealed a center that could not be moved. And the world around you responded. Friends, peers, even acquaintances began reaching out, not to congratulate, but to learn. They wanted to know how you stayed steady when the ground was moving, how you held onto yourself when so much was pulling at you. Without trying, you had become the living example of what it means to walk through fire and come out carrying the blueprint for survival. Some moments are more than victories. They're living lessons for everyone who has the eyes to see. What unfolded wasn't simply about overcoming an attack. It was about showing an entirely different blueprint for how to exist in a world that thrives on emotional chaos. Without preaching, without posturing, you became a quiet demonstration of what it looks like to hold your ground when the air is thick with manipulation. It wasn't just resilience, it was mastery in real time, shaped by every trial that had prepared you for this exact stage. Those watching found themselves absorbing more than they realized. They witnessed that it's possible to keep your voice steady when lies surround you, to remain balanced when provoked, and to let clarity guide you instead of rage. You didn't just tell them it could be done. You showed them. And in doing so, you revealed the source of a power that doesn't come from controlling others, but from owning yourself completely. What began as a contained conflict soon outgrew its boundaries. Stories of your composure moved far beyond the original audience, reaching people you had never met. They came looking not for gossip, but for guidance. People caught in their own webs of deceit and betrayal, searching for someone who had walked that path without losing themselves. The attempt to shrink your influence had instead stretched it into new places, introducing you to connections and possibilities that would have remained invisible if not for this trial. Some outcomes are so poetic in their reversal that they almost feel scripted by something far bigger than human intent. Those who plotted against you found themselves trapped in the very snare they had laid. The fractures they tried to place in your name showed up in their own image. The distance they worked to put between you and others became the space that now surrounds them. What they thought would dismantle you ended up stripping away their own stability. They poured effort, time, and credibility into a campaign designed to bring you down, yet the result was the opposite of every intention they had. Instead of shrinking your standing, they propelled it upward, unintentionally building a stage that showcased your strength. In trying to spotlight your flaws, they illuminated your virtues. In working to isolate you, they pushed you into the paths of people who recognized and valued your worth. Their narrative of destruction turned into a living advertisement for your integrity. Even now, your presence in this story is being retold as an example of what true composure looks like under pressure. Opportunities are emerging from conversations you're not even in, as people cite your steadiness as a reason you should be trusted with greater responsibility. The mark you've made in this chapter will outlast the noise that tried to erase it. You've become proof that real authority isn't built through deception but through unwavering character, and that no tactic born of malice can match the durability of truth anchored in authenticity. Some tests don't just measure your strength, they transform it. What unfolded wasn't simply about surviving an attack, it was about discovering the depth of your own endurance. Every moment you held steady while the ground shifted beneath you revealed that you were carrying far more resilience than anyone, including you, had realized. Those who witnessed it weren't just impressed. They understood they had seen something rare in a world where so many collapse under far less pressure. The way you navigated this storm became a living testament that it's possible to stand firm without hardening your heart. You found the balance between defending your boundaries and keeping your humanity intact. You didn't let bitterness stain your spirit, nor did you let provocation rewrite your principles. This is what people noticed most. You didn't just win, you won without losing yourself. What was meant to crush your spirit became the very weight that shaped you into someone unshakable. The blows meant to fracture your foundation only compacted it, making it stronger, denser, and immovable. This was not the ending your adversaries intended. It was the ignition point for a new beginning you might never have chosen, but one that's now yours to claim. Every attempt to dim your presence ended up intensifying it. Where they expected you to fade into the background, you stood taller, radiating a steadiness that others couldn't ignore. The more they tried to silence your voice, the clearer and more compelling it became to those around you. They unknowingly handed you a platform. This experience has carved wisdom into your character that will serve you for a lifetime. You now know that no storm is too great, no challenge too heavy, and no deception too complex to dismantle the truth you carry. That certainty alone has made you a force that can't be manipulated. The people who plotted against you unintentionally prepared you for arenas far bigger than the one they tried to trap you in. Without realizing it, they sharpened your discernment, deepened your patience, and expanded your vision. They gave you the kind of training no mentor could replicate and no book could teach. Your response didn't just protect your name, it redefined it. Now, when people speak of you, they don't just think of what you do, they think of how you do it. They associate you with composure under pressure, clarity in confusion, and integrity in the face of provocation. This reputation has already begun to create opportunities you couldn't have scripted. People who never met you are hearing about your ability to navigate conflict without losing your center. They're seeking you out, not just for advice, but for partnership and leadership in spaces where steadiness is rare. What began as a smear campaign ended up as a broadcast of your authentic power. The story spread, not as they intended, but as evidence of how real strength behaves when tested. You became a walking case study in how to dismantle toxicity without ever picking up its tools. The irony is almost too precise to be accidental. Those who sought to undermine you invested more energy in amplifying your credibility than you ever could have on your own. They were building your audience while thinking they were dismantling it. Even now, long after their noise has faded, the memory of your response remains alive in the minds of those who saw it unfold. They recall not just the events, but the way you carried yourself through them. The unshaken tone, the steady gaze, the refusal to be baited into their chaos. In a culture obsessed with quick reactions and public retaliation, you modeled another way. You showed that silence can be sharper than accusation, that patience can outlast manipulation, and that presence can outweigh performance. These are lessons people will keep returning to. You've stepped into a place where your influence is no longer dependent on what you say, it's anchored in who you are. That's why your story will keep moving on its own, carried by those who were changed simply by watching you live it. The path you've walked has positioned you as a mirror for others, reflecting back to them what's possible when they choose integrity over impulse. Every person who's been lied about, undermined, or underestimated will see in you the proof that survival is not enough. You can thrive. And so, what began as an attempt to erase you has instead written you into a larger narrative. One where your name is linked not to the attacks you endured, but to the way you turned them into a source of power. You didn't just endure the fire, you emerged from it carrying the blueprint for how others can too. Some changes don't just stay where they start, they expand outward, reshaping everything they touch. What began as a private test of your endurance has turned into a chain reaction reaching far beyond your immediate circle. By refusing to be pulled into petty schemes or emotional traps, you set a new tone in your environment. People who saw you stand steady in the middle of chaos are now mirroring that same steadiness in their own battles, proving that strength can spread just as fast as fear if someone is brave enough to model it. Those who once moved against you are discovering that the shadow of their choices lingers far beyond the moment. Their behavior toward you is now a cautionary tale whispered in rooms they can't enter. Connections are slipping away, alliances are dissolving, and doors that once opened for them are quietly staying shut. And yet, where their path narrows, yours expands. Every barrier they face seems to correspond with a new path unfolding for you, as if the universe itself is rebalancing the scales. Not long after the dust settled, a message found its way to you, an offer you hadn't sought, from someone you didn't realize had been paying close attention. They explained that they had watched you handle tension with precision and grace, and it was exactly the kind of presence they needed for their own vision to succeed. Since then, similar moments have kept arriving in different forms. Projects, partnerships, invitations, each one tied to the reputation you've built for remaining composed when others collapse. This is no accident. The season that was meant to shrink you has actually expanded your influence into spaces you might never have reached otherwise. What you gained during those weeks of pressure wasn't just external recognition. It was a deeper shift inside you. Your threshold for chaos has changed. The need to justify yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you is gone. You move with an inner stability that makes outside turbulence irrelevant. That stability has become a natural filter. The people drawing closer now are not here for spectacle, they're here for substance. They recognize the quiet strength of someone who's been through the fire without smelling of smoke. At the same time, those who thrive on disorder can't find a foothold in your world anymore. They drift away without you having to push them. Your circle is transforming without force or strategy, only by the gravity of who you've become. The new energy you carry signals to others that you are a safe place for truth and a dangerous place for deception. Those who value authenticity will always be drawn to that signal, while those who fear it will naturally turn away. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful proof of all that this chapter was never about breaking you. It was about refining you until you became impossible to shake. Some truths arrive late, but when they do, they shift the entire weight of the story. Long after the noise had faded, a message came from someone who had once stood close to the people working against you. What they revealed pulled the curtain back in a way no one expected. It hadn't been a passing disagreement or a moment of heated conflict. This was a calculated operation, quietly constructed over many months, with your life laid out like a map under their scrutiny. They had been collecting fragments of information, embedding themselves in your surroundings, and playing the part of allies while sketching out a blueprint for your downfall. Their planning had layers most wouldn't think possible. Under fabricated identities, they followed your movements. Through feigned friendships, they pried into your world. They attended gatherings not for connection, but to observe and report. Every step they took was deliberate, aimed at dismantling your foundations without you noticing. When this truth reached the wider circle, the perception of your response changed entirely. What had seemed like a conflict you navigated well was now understood as something far more chilling, a multi-person, sustained effort to erase you. The respect you'd already earned deepened into something stronger, because people now understood that you had held your composure under a level of manipulation most wouldn't survive. You hadn't just faced opposition. You had, without knowing it, outlasted a coordinated network determined to undo you. Your steady presence became undeniable proof that genuine strength cannot be broken, even by the most elaborate deception. The person who stepped forward with this knowledge also gave you an even greater revelation. Your restraint had done more than protect you. It had stopped these people from repeating the same harm to others. Your unwillingness to collapse under pressure revealed them for what they were, robbing them of the ability to target in secrecy again. This meant your stance wasn't just personal defense, it was a form of protection for an entire community. By refusing to match their chaos, you exposed it, and in doing so, you shifted the safety of the environment for others who might have been in line to face the same treatment. Those who engineered this web of deceit now live inside the isolation they once wished on you. Conversations about their methods travel through professional channels and social spaces alike. Their names are quietly noted as warnings, their invitations rescinded before they're even extended. Even the circles they once relied on are dissolving around them. And while they shrink into the consequences they authored, your world has widened. You carry forward the depth and certainty born from surviving something so methodical and intense. The confidence you've gained doesn't just let you dream bigger. It makes you fearless enough to step into places you once thought were beyond reach. Your expansion isn't loud, it's deliberate, grounded in the knowledge that if you could walk through this and remain whole, there's nothing ahead that can truly shake you. That is the real victory they never accounted for, the one that ensures their story ends in retreat, while yours continues in unstoppable forward motion. Some examples of strength are so rare they end up living in the stories people tell to inspire others. What you displayed during that chapter didn't just earn respect, it became the reference point for how to move with self-control when the pressure is relentless. The people who saw it unfold now pass your story along as evidence that real composure is possible, even when the circumstances are built to strip it away. Meanwhile, those who tried to undermine you are learning a truth they never prepared for, that reputations don't reset just because time passes. The memory of their actions lingers in the networks they move through. With every new introduction, the echoes of what they did travel ahead of them, quietly reshaping how they are received. What they didn't realize is that attacks only work if there's something genuine to exploit. When a person stands on a solid core, every attempt to dismantle them simply reflects the instability of the attacker. In trying to fracture your credibility, they ended up spotlighting the cracks in their own. Every deliberate choice you made to hold your center instead of lashing out became an investment in a kind of power that doesn't fade. You built something permanent while they burned through their energy on temporary disruption. That contrast has left its mark. Your stability became a structure, while their chaos dissolved into nothing. The reason people are still speaking about that time is because it showed what's possible when someone refuses to let malice dictate their actions. You kept your values intact while under direct provocation, and that choice turned what could have been just another conflict into a defining moment of growth and proof of character. Your response separated you from the countless people who crumble under scrutiny. In a world where most react impulsively at the first sign of hostility, you demonstrated that strength doesn't have to be loud to be undeniable. That distinction is now part of your identity, and it will continue to open doors others won't even know exist. The admiration you've earned isn't rooted in what you said, it's in what you didn't do. You didn't let them bait you into their arena. You didn't dilute your truth for the sake of comfort. You didn't trade your integrity for the fleeting satisfaction of revenge. And that discipline has inspired more than you realize. People who were once bystanders have adjusted their own behavior because of what they saw in you. They've chosen measured responses over explosions, clarity over chaos, and truth over appeasement, because they saw those choices work.